The captured German courier was dragged into the Allied camp with no unit patch, no papers, and a map stitched inside his coat. But when the colonel unfolded it, 3 American patrol routes were already marked in red before the patrols had even left. A prisoner in the next cage saw the map, turned white, and whispered that the Ghost Division was not hiding from the Allies, because someone inside the camp was guiding it. The first patrol disappeared before sunrise, not in a forest, not in a ruined village, but on a road the Allies had cleared twice the day before. Their tire tracks ended beside a broken stone bridge. Their radio set lay smashed in a ditch, and the only sign left behind was a German field strip tied around a branch with no unit number printed on it. Captain Robert Hayes reached the scene with 2 MPs and knew immediately that the enemy had not stumbled onto the patrol by chance. By noon, the captured courier arrived at the temporary POW enclosure under heavy guard. He had been found walking alone near the bridge, wearing a plain coat over a German uniform stripped of insignia. He claimed he was separated from a supply column, but his boots were dry while every road nearby was full of mud, and his coat lining had been sewn shut by hand only hours earlier. Hayes ordered the lining cut open in front of the prisoner cages. A folded map slid out and landed on the table. 3 American patrol routes were marked in red, including one route that had not yet been sent out. The officers around the table froze, but the German prisoners behind the wire reacted first. One older sergeant stepped backward, as if the map had opened a door he had spent days pretending not to see. The courier tried to grab the map, and 2 MPs slammed him against the table before he reached it. Hayes turned toward the prisoner cages and saw the older sergeant staring at the red lines. The man's face had lost all color. When Hayes ordered him brought forward, the sergeant said nothing until the courier shouted a warning in German, and that warning made the sergeant finally speak. He said the unit on the map had no fixed road, no clear command post, and no markings that could be followed from the air. Allied patrols called it the Ghost Division because it appeared behind cleared lines, struck fast, and vanished before reports reached headquarters. Then he added the line that changed the room. The division was not guessing Allied routes. It was receiving them. Hayes ordered the POW enclosure sealed immediately. No prisoner was to leave for work detail. No clerk was to handle paperwork alone, and no messages were to pass through the camp office without inspection. The courier laughed under his breath and said the Americans were already late. The next red mark on the map pointed toward a medical convoy scheduled to leave in 2 hours. The convoy order had not been posted publicly. Only the Allied command tent, the transport clerk, and the prisoner labor office had seen the route. Hayes sent MPs to the motor pool while another squad searched the labor office. In the trash beside the clerk's desk, they found carbon paper with faint reversed impressions of the convoy route pressed into it. The initial conflict became a race. Hayes could not simply chase the Ghost Division across the countryside because the leak was inside the camp. If he stopped the convoy, the hidden informant would know he had been exposed. If he let it move, wounded men might drive straight into an ambush. He ordered the convoy delayed without explanation, then sent a decoy truck down the marked road with hidden scouts following from the trees. Subscribe for more forgotten German POW stories like this one. The decoy truck rolled out at dusk with empty crates under its canvas and 2 scouts hidden in a drainage ditch a mile ahead. Hayes watched from a ridge as the truck crossed the first bend. Nothing moved at first. Then a flare rose from the far tree line, not high enough to signal aircraft, but low enough for someone waiting beyond the road to see it. The scouts reported movement on both sides of the convoy route within seconds. The ambush was too precise. German figures appeared at the exact ditch where the medical convoy would have slowed for the damaged bridge, then vanished when they saw the truck was moving too light and too fast. The scouts fired one warning burst, captured a wounded signalman, and found another cloth strip tied to a branch. This one carried a chalk mark shaped like a broken wheel. Back at the camp, Hayes placed the chalk-marked cloth beside the courier's map. The older German sergeant identified the mark as a field sign used by a reconnaissance group attached to the Ghost Division. He said they changed signs every day, which meant someone inside the camp had received the new mark that morning. The escalation moved from suspicion to proof. The leak was active, close, and still communicating. Hayes ordered a surprise inspection of every prisoner work detail that had left the enclosure that day. The first two groups returned clean. The third group, assigned to unload fuel cans, had one prisoner missing from the count for 11 minutes. His name was Dieter Falk, a quiet mechanic who claimed he had gone behind the shed because he felt sick. His hands smelled of grease, but the fuel shed lock had fresh scratches around the latch. Inside the shed, MPs found a narrow gap behind stacked cans. Hidden inside it was a message tube no bigger than a rolled cigarette. The note inside contained no words, only road numbers, times, and the broken wheel mark. It had been prepared but not yet sent. Hayes ordered Fox separated from the other prisoners, and the courier's confidence finally faded. Falk denied everything until Hayes brought in the captured signalman from the failed ambush. The two men did not speak, but they recognized each other too quickly. The signalman looked away, and Falk's shoulders dropped before the interpreter asked a question. Hayes now had two links, one inside the camp and one in the field, but he still did not know how messages were leaving after every route change. The answer came from the laundry cart. An MP noticed that clean uniforms were being folded with small knots tied into the drawstrings, different patterns on different bundles. The older sergeant said the knots looked meaningless unless someone knew the code, but the captured signalman admitted the Ghost Scouts watched the laundry yard from a ridge each afternoon. The camp had been sending routes in plain sight. Hayes turned the system against them. He ordered the next bundle folded with a false knot pattern, marking a fake supply convoy on a road that led not to a bridge, but into a dead valley surrounded by Allied guns. He did not tell the transport clerks, the prisoner workers, or even most of his own MPs. This time the Ghost Division would receive exactly what it wanted, and the Americans would be waiting before it arrived. The false convoy moved before dawn, its engines muffled and its lights covered, while Allied infantry took positions along both ridges of the dead valley. Hayes sat in the lead command jeep with the captured signalman beside him under guard, forcing the man to watch the result of the message he had helped confirm. The road below looked empty, but fresh boot marks near the eastern slope showed that German scouts had entered the trap during the night. The Ghost Division did not attack like a normal unit. No long artillery preparation came. No shouting advance followed, and no visible column appeared on the road. Instead, two American sentries spotted men crawling beneath camouflage nets toward the rear of the convoy path. They were trying to cut off the exit first, exactly as they had done to the missing patrol at the stone bridge. Hayes held fire until the first German team placed signal flags in the grass. Then he gave the order. Searchlights snapped on from both ridges, machine guns cut across the escape lines, and American loudspeakers demanded surrender in German. The valley erupted with movement as ghost gray figures rose from ditches, dropped equipment, and ran toward cover that no longer protected them. The major consequence came when the captured men were brought into the road. Their uniforms carried no division patch, but their packs contained Allied route sketches, prisoner work schedules, and a list of American radio frequencies copied in several different hands. The Ghost Division had not survived by moving fast alone. It had built a chain of stolen information from captured clerks, frightened prisoners, and disguised scouts. One prisoner among the captured scouts recognized Falk's name and gave up another detail. He said the real handler inside the camp was not Falk. Falk only repaired locks, moved tubes, and prepared hiding places. The person who selected which route mattered was someone with access to Allied command papers before they reached the prisoner labor office. Hayes returned to camp with the captured documents and ordered every American clerk held for questioning. That decision created a dangerous consequence inside his own side. The transport clerk, Corporal Mason, protested that Hayes was accusing Americans because German prisoners lied. Another officer demanded that the investigation stay focused on the POWs. Hayes placed the captured route sketches on the table and pointed to a route that had only existed in one draft copy. That draft had never left the American command tent. The command tent search uncovered a missing carbon sheet beneath a field typewriter, but the theft was cleverer than expected. Someone had been lifting impressions from discarded paper, not stealing whole orders. The wastebasket, the burned bag, and the message board all became evidence. Hayes realized the handler did not need full access to final orders. He only needed to read the shadows left behind by typing. The consequence widened again when Mason disappeared from the questioning line. He was found behind the radio truck with a German phrase card hidden in his boot and a fresh scratch on his wrist from the command tent wire rack. He claimed he had been framed, but when Hayes searched his bunk, he found no money, no German contact, and no reason that explained why he would risk everything. That absence became the real clue. Mason was not the traitor. Someone had planted the phrase card badly and too late, hoping the Americans would stop searching. Hayes ordered Mason released under quiet watch and placed the whole camp on controlled routine, letting the hidden handler believe the frame had almost worked. By nightfall, the Ghost Division had lost a field team, but the mind feeding it was still inside the wire. The major reversal began when Mason, still angry but now secretly cooperating, returned to his desk and pretended to resume normal paperwork. Hayes had ordered him to leave a fresh draft route half visible beneath the typewriter ribbon, and by midnight a shadow moved across the command tent wall. It was not a prisoner, not Falk, and not any German worker. It was Lieutenant Graham, the Allied intelligence officer assigned to screen captured documents. Graham did not steal the paper. He pressed a soft wax strip against the typed impressions on the used carbon sheet, lifted the marks, and slid the strip into a hollow pencil. Mason nearly stood too soon, but Hayes caught him by the shoulder from behind the tent flap. They let Graham leave because catching him at the desk would prove theft, while following him might expose the last channel to the Ghost Division. Graham walked not toward the prisoner enclosure, but toward the medical tent, where he placed the pencil inside a tray of outgoing supply tags. A nurse collected the tray minutes later and carried it to an ambulance scheduled for a routine medicine run. Hayes stopped the ambulance before it reached the gate, opened the pencil, and found the false route inside. The reversal hit every officer watching. The leak was not German pressure from inside the POW cage. It was an Allied officer moving through trusted spaces. Graham was arrested quietly, but he refused to answer questions. He only said the Ghost Division was not a division at all, and that the Allies had been chasing a name invented to hide something smaller and more dangerous. Hayes ordered him searched, and inside his notebook they found references to 3 dead drops, 2 already used and 1 scheduled for dawn near an abandoned railway tower. The raid on the railway tower revealed the full reversal. There was no large German formation waiting in the woods. There was a mobile intelligence cell using the legend of the Ghost Division to make Allied commanders overreact, reroute convoys, and expose their own plans through panic. Every time the Allies searched for tanks and columns, the cell moved couriers, maps, and captured codes under the cover of confusion. At the tower, American scouts captured a German captain with a portable radio and a bundle of Allied route copies. He admitted nothing until Hayes placed Graham's hollow pencil on the table. Then the captain smiled and said Graham had not betrayed his country for money. He had been blackmailed after losing interrogation files that named 2 American agents behind German lines. The ghost cell had trapped him and used him as a silent route source. The reversal changed Graham from simple traitor to compromised officer, but it did not save him. Hayes ordered him confronted with the captured captain. Graham broke only when the captain mentioned the names of the agents, proving the blackmail was real. He admitted he had passed route fragments to keep the agents alive, but the German cell had kept demanding more until patrols began dying. Hayes now had a new mission. The point was no longer only to stop a leak, but to destroy the ghost cell before it used the last stolen route to capture the hidden agents. The captured captain had already sent one final signal before the raid, and the response was due at a ruined rail bridge before dawn. Hayes prepared a convoy using Graham as bait, knowing the ghost cell still believed its blackmailed source could be forced one more time. The final irreversible event began at the ruined rail bridge, where fog lay low over the tracks and the American convoy rolled forward with Graham seated in the rear truck under guard. Hayes had spread his men in 3 layers: visible drivers on the road, hidden riflemen along the embankment, and a silent team moving through the drainage tunnel beneath the bridge. This time no false route had been sent. This time they were following the enemy's final signal. A lantern blinked twice from the far side of the bridge. Graham was ordered to step down with the hollow pencil in his hand, while Hayes watched from behind the truck door. A German scout emerged first, then a second man carrying a radio pack. Then the same captain captured at the tower appeared under escort, being used by the Americans to draw out his own network. The ghost cell hesitated too late. Hayes gave the signal when the radio operator reached for Graham's sleeve. The drainage team rose behind the Germans, the embankment riflemen closed the road, and the visible convoy lights flooded the bridge. The cell tried to scatter, but the fog that had hidden them also trapped them against the river. Within minutes, the last couriers were disarmed, their codebooks seized, and their radio pack cut from the operator's shoulders. The final danger came from a sealed pouch carried by the radio operator. Inside were the names of the 2 Allied agents Graham had tried to protect, along with orders to move them before sunrise. Hayes sent a fast squad to the farmhouse marked in the pouch, while he stayed at the bridge to secure the prisoners. If the squad arrived too late, the ghost cell would lose its network but still win its cruelest prize. The farmhouse raid reached the door as a German courier was loading 2 blindfolded men into a cart. The Americans struck fast, pulled the agents free, and captured the courier before he could burn the papers in his coat. One agent was weak but walking. The other carried a small notebook filled with German radio call signs, including the call sign that had created the Ghost Division legend. By sunrise, the captured cell, Graham, Falk, the courier, and the signalman were all brought back to the POW camp. Hayes ordered the evidence laid out in one line: hollow pencil, wax strips, laundry knots, route maps, false unit marks, bridge codebook, and the agent's notebook. The prisoners and American clerks saw the entire machine for the first time, not as a ghost, but as hands, tools, fear, and stolen paper. Graham was placed apart from the German captives. Hayes did not excuse him, but he recorded the blackmail and the rescue of the agents in the official statement. Falk was forced to identify every hiding place he had built inside the camp, and each one was opened in front of witnesses. The legend lost its power as every secret method became ordinary evidence on a table. The irreversible act came when Hayes ordered the false name, Ghost Division, crossed out on the operations board and replaced with the captured cell's real designation. The next patrol routes were then issued by hand to officers only after the convoy engines had started. No carbon sheets remained, no laundry signals moved, and no prisoner work detail touched transport papers again. The unit the Allies could not track had finally been fixed to a place, a name, and a chain of captured men. The next patrol crossed the stone bridge without vanishing. Hayes stood beside the road as the first truck rolled past the branch where the blank German field strip had been tied days earlier. He removed the strip, folded it into an evidence envelope, and watched the rescued agents ride toward headquarters with the captured codebook between them. The Ghost Division had not disappeared because it was supernatural. It had disappeared because fear had given it corridors, and those corridors were now closed. Most people know how World War II ended. Very few know what happened inside these prison camps. Subscribe for more untold WW2 stories.